You're listening to the Loving Your Own Soul podcast, and I'm your host, Britt. Guided by my own intuition, my intention is to deliver genuine conversations centered around health and wellness, spirituality, self-expression, and culture. In this space, I will provide you with real-life stories, theories, and inspiring perspectives to help you uncover and tap into your own true potential. I'm so grateful you've chosen to tune in with me on this mindful exploration to living a more fluid life through a deeper connection to the soul. Now let's dive into today's journey. Today on the podcast, we have one of my favorite souls and expanders, Nikki Novo, for a conversation centered around all things spirituality, intuition, and our spiritual journeys. Nikki Novo, she's wonderful. If you are not familiar already, I highly recommend following her, checking her out, learning from her. She's truly such an expander for me. Nikki is a Cuban-American best-selling author, spiritual teacher, and intuitive healer who guides inquisitive souls to find clarity and purpose in all areas of their lives. She is a certified hypnotherapist, theta healer, Reiki healer, and her work is really focused on providing spirituality seekers a community for their hearts and spirits to flourish. And I will tell you, she truly does exactly that. Nikki's ability to hold space for her students in a gentle and powerful way has paved the way for thousands to be enlightened, awakened, and activated by Soul Academy on-demand courses with live group coaching, heart-centeredness through her #1 best-selling book, The Final Swipe, and certified as a soul teacher in her proprietary certification program. Dedicated to holistic health and wellness, Nikki has been commissioned to speak by organizations such as Equinox, Yahoo, Macy's, Bumble, so many others. She's been featured in Oprah Magazine, NBC, Telemundo, as well as on popular podcasts such as Almost 30, The Balanced Blonde, and That's So Retrograde. Whew. She's the best. Just a little taste of Nikki's journey for you all to get you inspired and excited for this conversation. Nikki is truly such a gem, and I just loved sharing space with her and being in her energy. I feel so grateful for this time, and I know you are going to absolutely love her as well. Now, before we jump into our conversation with Nikki, I wanted to take a quick moment to chat about breath work. The power of connecting to our breath and the healing that follows, in my own opinion, is truly not only priceless, but our breath is literally free right inside of us. For me, on my own journey, connecting with my breath was a little difficult at first. Anything new is. If you're having difficulty with it, I feel you, I sit with you, we've all been there. However, the practice really expanded me when I started attending guided breathwork sessions. It is so powerful, and honestly, I get that it's hard to believe, but truly our breath is one of our greatest healers. So if you have not yet connected with your breath, please do so. Take a minute, hit pause on the episode right now. If you have connected and you're just not getting it, I feel you. You need some guided breathwork sessions. Trust me. And to that point, because I love breathwork and I believe in it so much, I recently partnered with Lee Parody to offer you a chance to join her breath portal. If you follow the link in the show notes or on my Instagram bio, you can learn all about the breath portal and how to get your 7-day free trial. I've been in there myself. I've been loving the monthly guided meditations and breathwork sessions, and I just loved it so much. I wanted to be able to share it with all of you and have you join me. How fun would that be? We can do this together and just even continue more so to share in our energy together. So if this is of interest to you, follow the link in the show notes so that you can join the Breath Portal with a 7-day free trial. And now, without further ado, let's jump into today's episode with Nikki Novo. Enjoy, and I will see you on the other side. Well, Nikki, welcome to the Loving Your Own Soul podcast. I'm just excited to kind of hold space with your energy here today and just learn a little bit more about you and your journey.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. I love the name of your podcast.
Oh.
We're like soul sisters, just loving the soul part of life. So here, I'm excited to be here with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And for anyone who's new to you or your journey, or they're not quite familiar with you, you're a spiritual mentor, teacher, medium, I believe a shaman as well. I know you also have your own podcast, Soul Led. You've got the Soul Academy. I mean, you just have so much going on. I would love to hear, just kind of for you, if you could just fill us in, maybe briefly, kind of some of the pieces about what brought you to your journey and your line of work and all that you have going on.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I try to just identify the soul because then it's just there's too many things. But in human form, I'm a mother, a mother of three, and I am an intuitive, and I teach intuition through different through our Soul Academy, all of that. But that wasn't really always my story. I was, I grew up in a Cuban Catholic environment, and I always joke that like if I showed any signs of intuition at a very young age, like you better believe my mom would have been sending me to like some sort of priest or like a nun school or something to make sure that like the devil would leave me. So my story was not one of like being a young intuitive or those kids that like saw dead people or anything like that. I didn't have any of those natural gifts. I actually I studied publicity in college. I moved to LA. I worked in the film industry. I worked at like Lionsgate and Fox Searchlight. And I really always loved like entertainment. And I always thought, I loved to be creative. I thought I was going to do something in that department. I also thought I was going to be broke because my family like really trained me to be like, you have to be like a professional or a doctor, an attorney. If not, you're not going to make any money. So I was like, well, I'm going to be an artist. I'm going to be creative. I did that. I lived in LA for a while. And ultimately like found writing because, the cool thing about LA is that there's all these like really cool artistic, creative people doing work that they love. And many of them making money, not all of them, but many of them. And when I saw that, I was like, oh, you can like do something you love and make money. So that was like very expansive for me. And I decided that I wanted to start writing. So I moved back to Miami, which is where I grew up. And I started writing, just pitching different magazines and just different media companies to see like who would let me write. Ultimately got like my first writing gigs. And at first, I was really just writing about fashion and beauty and like I definitely had, I remember writing one article that was like such a big deal. And it was what was like the best hot dog in Miami, and like that was like I had made it. I had arrived when I was writing about hot dogs. So I mean, I did a little bit of everything in the beginning, but I loved it because I just loved writing and I really like learned like my craft there. I had never been taught. I didn't go to school to write or anything like that, but I had these like really great editors and just the practice of writing and that was really fun for me. But so at some point, so I always just thought I was going to stay in media. Like I just really saw myself like going up that ladder, maybe moving to New York. I have a lot of friends from that time that are in New York and have, these big roles in the media companies. And I kind of just thought that that was going to be my path. But as the divine will have it, I was dating a boy and I was in my 20s. And of course, like I was dating this guy and I was like, oh, we're going to get married. My mind was like really set on that. And like went from one day to the next, he broke up with me and he gave me like no answers. He told me that it was him, not me. And I was like really lost. I thought I was on this path, I was like, I'm doing media, I'm dating this guy, I'm living in this high rise in Miami, like living my best life. And of course, like when that happened, I was like, I need a psychic. Like, I need somebody who is going to tell me that either I'm going to get back with this guy or that like everything's going to be okay and I'm going to marry a doctor and like life is going to be good. Because I was raised Catholic, I was very afraid of this like desire in me. I had this like very strong desire to seek the divine in like another form rather than church. Because what's funny is that I had moved back from LA to Miami, single. And I remember going to church with my mom because she would, I grew up in a Catholic school and we would go to the church that I went, the same school, like the parish, whatever. And I remember being there, like praying to God and being like, God, please send me a boyfriend. And that's also why I thought this relationship was like of divinity. I was like, this is like divinely sent to me because I prayed. And like a couple weeks later, this guy showed up in my life, which total like mind fuck for you. But so like, of course, like after like when he broke up with me, I was like, I'm not going to church. Like that didn't work out the first time. Like I need something else. So I was like seeking out psychics, but none of my friends were into it. I was just scared. Like I was just taught that that was like a really bad thing. And I was actually scared of the desire to want to go. So, but luckily I had met this fairly new friend who went to high school with me, but I wasn't good friends with her until like once we were out of college. And she's like, I know some psychics. And I was like, oh, okay. It was kind of like getting like drugs. It felt like you were just going through
Totally.
you're going to like back alleys and you got to get cash and it's dark and it's after hours. And that was like our hunt for these like psychics. And we went to many before we like stumbled upon the right one. I remember going to one, we drove like super far. It was dark. It was the middle, like it was like 10 o'clock at night on like a Tuesday or something to visit this woman who I guess like did this probably at night, like on the side. She probably worked at like, I don't know, an office job during the day. And when I went to her, she was like, yeah, no, I see you have a broken heart and you're never going to feel better unless you get back with this guy. And I was like, oh my God, what am I paying you for? So of course, and I remember being there and being like, this is what my mom told me about. Like, this is why she told me not to go with these psychics. But I didn't give up because I don't know, I felt like there must be something better. Maybe there's a thing here. So we also ultimately landed upon this woman in a very like it was very interesting how I was out to dinner with this girlfriend, the one that brought me to the bad psychic, and then my other girlfriend. So the three of us are out in Lincoln Road in Miami Beach, and we're talking about our hunt for the psychic. And the third friend, who was my roommate, she was from New York, and it was like very common to go to psychics. So she's like, oh, Miami has to have some. And we were all kind of trying to manifest this good psychic together, talking about it. We go back to our car because we all came in the same car. We parked in a parking garage. And we get there, and my friend from New York, she's opening the passenger door, and there's a card, like a little business card in the window. And it says, angel readings, call so and so. And we were like, holy shit. So we were just talking about this, and there was just no way, even if somebody heard us, like, I mean, our car was in a massive parking garage. So that lady, that card, like changed my life. It changed the trajectory of my life. We went to this woman. She did angel readings, which felt very comfortable to me because there's angels in the Bible, and it sounded like nice stuff. I met this woman. She was super spot on. I mean, she predicted my husband like way before I met him, all
Mm.
amazing things. What was weird about that meeting, while she was so incredible, I was so impressed. I also, at the end, had this very weird question, and I asked her, do you think I can do what you do?
Mm.
Which is so weird because usually we think of these intuitives as like superheroes, that they're born with like these super gifts. And that was her story. Like she's actually from North Carolina now that I think about it. And she was just like, actually the child of a pastor and like always saw ghosts and these things. And like it was just so hard for her growing up in her family. But she was always psychic. So it was kind of weird that I thought to ask that question, but she was so kind to be like, yeah, like you can study it and you can learn about it. And sure, like she was really encouraging. She introduced me to Doreen Virtue's work that does like, have you heard of her before?
Hmm. Yeah.
So people are like triggered by her because she did all this angel work and now she's like I don't know what the proper term is, but she's like Christian and has denounced like all of her angel
Yeah.
work. But her angel work is still real good, guys. So don't worry about that shit. So I read all those books, and she wrote these great books about like how to hear your angels and all this. And this was in, I guess I graduated from college this was probably like around 2008 or so. So I'm like reading all these books, and there was great tips, and it was working for me. Like I started to connect to angels. I was having dreams. Like I was, really just starting to, I didn't want to see in the beginning. I was like, I do not want any angels showing up to my bed. None of that, shenanigans. I'm okay with like hearing you or having you come into my dreams. And yeah, it was just like, it was a very much like a little by little thing. Ultimately, I took like different certifications, and I just was interested, and it just kept opening more and more and more, ultimately to the point that I was able to see. And this was also a time that blogging was like coming up. So as an editor at the time, I was of course blogging personally also, while all my friends were doing like fashion blogging. I knew that I was like, I just don't have time for all those outfits. So I ended up doing like kind of like a self-help blog and dating, and like I was writing about dating like through the spiritual lens. And so I just thought I was going to be like more self-help, and maybe some like life coaching at the time. Gabrielle Bernstein was coming up on the scene, and Chris Carr, and I was very inspired by them. And I was like, oh, maybe this is the thing. Like maybe this could be a job. Never thinking that I would be like a full-on intuitive. Like I just thought maybe I would write some self-help books, some prescriptive things or something. But once you start that like journey of opening up your intuition, it just kind of, if you keep being interested in it, it just keeps opening. So at some point I started doing like some life coaching, and just kind of still as an editor. And what would happen is that I would sit with people, and all of a sudden like all these downloads were coming in, and the
Mhm.
person was like, what is happening? So at some point I had to kind of be honest, and I was like, okay, Nikki, like there's something happening. You have to tell people that like you are intuitive. Like you can't keep like scaring people or just telling them that they're coming for advice, and then like all of a sudden you're talking to their dead grandfather. So it was, at first it was kind of like which I see with a lot of my students. At first it was like this magic wand that I had, and I was just like throwing it around. I didn't know, what to do with it, or when to do it, or when it would happen. I had no control of the gifts. And then ultimately, I met this spirit guide of mine in my meditation. In one of my meditations, um, actually during a certification, I was studying theta healing, which is
Mm.
an energy modality. And when I was there, I met the spirit guide. I was like in meditation there, and the spirit guide came forward, and the spirit guide taught me how to be precise. So ultimately, I developed a method to do readings because people kept coming, and my spirit guide like taught me how to read. I do it through reading chakras, and there's some things that I do in the Akashic records. And once I had that method, it was just became almost like a factory of readings, because I would say for any intuitive or anybody that maybe thinks that they want to do it for a living, I would definitely say that like that method is a game changer for you. Because I think like if you go to a restaurant, for instance, and you love it because every time you go, that veggie burger you're getting is going to taste exactly the same as you got it 2 weeks ago, and 3 weeks before that, and 4 weeks before that. That's because they have a method, there's a recipe. Where many intuitives, if we don't have methods, we we can't guarantee a good outcome. So once I was like able to guarantee a good outcome because I was doing the same thing every single time, that's when like, that's when I became like a busy intuitive. That's when like a lot of people started showing up for readings, because I could guarantee a good read because I was doing the same thing. And then yeah, like once it started happening, I just couldn't deny it anymore, and I ultimately had to leave my last full-time job, which was at Refinery 29 as an editor. And it was a crazy thing to do because I had reached like a level in my career, which I was like, I really wanted to work at that company, and it was a big deal to get the job. And I was just like, I don't know, I got to go off, guys. And then it was scary too, because I was an editor, I was a writer. And then all of a sudden I was going off to write some crazy shit and do some crazy readings. I'm happy I did. So ultimately, like, became a full time intuitive, and now feels like another lifetime. So now I've been doing a lot of readings, but I also teach people to do readings as well.
So cool. What a journey. How much did you have to really lean in and trust during that transition? Because I'm sure that was so difficult and almost feeling like, not that you're, just it's such a big transition to make. And especially at a time where, this stuff wasn't as prevalent as it is today. Like, did you have to really just lean in and hold tight to those intuitive notions?
Yeah, I mean, there was so much like crisis, like inner crisis going on. The move from the job, I was able to be kind of logical about it. I was like, okay, Nikki, like you're making X amount of money, you're working all these hours, and you're building somebody else's brand. So for me, like kind of my confidence in my ability to make a brand or whatever was pretty strong because I had already worked for big companies. And so logically, it didn't like the math didn't add up for me. It felt like I was like, I can put all this effort into my own stuff. And I guess I believed in myself enough to think that that was silly. Like I was like, this is kind of a dumb move to be making, like to be working at a company building their brand. Like it didn't click. So thankfully I had like that like logical and I guess just the right amount of like self-belief, that helped me jump over and see that it was like it would make sense for me to put that energy into myself. So that was one. And then I didn't, at this point, I had married my husband already, and he had like a little small, he's an arborist, and he had a small like tree business, very mom and pops. I mean, the guy was like writing things on like paper and there was paper receipts and all this shit. And I was very overwhelmed by how he was running his company. And I made a deal with him. And I was like, listen, I want to go off on my own. I want to do this stuff. I don't know how I'm going to make money, but I think I can do it. Can I help you run your business? Like, I think I can help you make money. And he believed in me too, which was nice. And so like my day job was with him, and then I would work on my stuff on the side. But that was helpful for me because, and we had like, and it's funny because we got married. We got married by the end of like the wedding and all that stuff. We'd spent so much that I think I had like $2,000 left in my bank account, and I decided that it would be a smart move to like leave my job and work for him when he wasn't making like a ton of money or anything. He was making just enough for himself. And we were just crazy enough to think that it was a good idea. And we we just decided to kind of combine forces to be able to um, to like make we had like kind of the same vision of like what we wanted for our lives. And I put like my effort into his company, and he was ready to get more business too. So I put like marketing effort into him. And then I was like a secretary by day, and I was able to leave like my creative energy for my work. So that was also helpful too. Like I didn't make, I know some people like to make like a clean jump. I personally feel that what you need is creative space. So like since my job was all my Refinery 29 job was about writing and about being creative, all of that creative juice and energy from me was being used there. But at my husband's, it was really more like organization and just getting tasks done. I wasn't using like my heart or my I don't like not my creative juices. And I was able, so I recommend that too when you're kind of making a leap. Like it's not that you have to leave the job, it might just be can there be a job, or can you be okay with not doing as much so that you can like leave that energy for the other thing. So I worked for my husband for a long time. We built the business to like a really big business. I learned a lot about business, so that was cool. But a lot of the beginning, to be honest with you, was ego. Like I was like, I must, like my little solar plexus was like, I can do this. I will do this. And I was very stubborn in the beginning. So even though that there was like no signs of it working out, I guess I just like, there was a lot of ego that helped me actually. There was like the fear of like, what if I failed? Oh my gosh, people are going to like judge me. So I will not fail. So that's why ego's not bad. Sometimes it serves you. So for the
Totally.
first few years, it did serve me. And then ultimately, like it did not at some point, but that like the beginning was really like coming from a place of like wanting to prove myself. And that gave me like the fire to not give up. So that was like the first part of it. But later, that ego didn't work out for me anymore.
Cool. Time and place for the ego for sure. But I definitely feel that there is certain elements of our journey where that ego is very necessary, and almost we wouldn't have that energy, that fire to really get us into that next place completely.
Definitely. It's like, don't judge it, you know?
Yeah, 100%. Did you have along that whole journey any little, we could call them coincidences or like synchronistic moments that kept kind of popping up that you were like, okay, keep following, almost like it wasn't, you kind of, once you went on that path, you kind of landed in a little bit of that like flow motion?
Yeah, I mean, I think there were certain people that came into my life. Like for instance, I hired an assistant for my husband, and she we would sit next to each other, and randomly one day she's like, "Have you ever heard of Archangel Michael?" And I was like, it was like code for like the metaphysics. I was like, "Yes, I do know Archangel Michael. Why
Yeah.
are you asking?" And she like, so she was learning about the metaphysics. I had already studied a lot of these things, and but I had kind of had to tuck it away because I was trying to grow my husband's business. I was, I was in a very like kind of masculine energy at the time, and I didn't have time for like more study. And she like brought that into my life again, and she was with me for like a year and a half, and in that year and a half I would sit next to her every day, and we would talk about these things, and there was nobody else in my life that I could talk to about this stuff. And through being with her and like practicing and testing and playing and sharing what we were learning, like I grew so much in that year and a half. And I just think that like, and now, she's like an artist, like there was no reason for her to do that job, So it was just kind of interesting how like she plopped into my life, and that, that changed, the trajectory also. I had certain just like I would do these like workshops sometimes, and people would show up, and some people like would want to help me with like, I had this one student want to help me like with branding, and when she helped me with branding, like she helped me discover like my look and all the like there's just so I received so much support, I feel like, from the divine throughout the process. Like things that I probably wouldn't have known to look for were kind of brought into my life. And I think that, and like I have worked hard obviously to get where I am, but also there's, when you start to walk your path, I feel like it's almost like you're taking a road trip and you stop at these gas stations, and there's these people at the gas stations, like you're almost like kind of like, were they angels? Were they supposed to be there? So that I feel like it gets very hard, but also there's all these people along the way that want that like support you in the not, and they don't even know they're supporting you. I don't think, but it's, it kind of makes it reminds me that there is something so much bigger than just your desire to want to make this a career or do this thing. There's a lot of destiny involved as well.
Yes. Oh, yeah, completely. Could not agree more. Do you feel that you have any past lives that were in a similar place that you are now in this line of work, or any even like a witch wound, as some of us will call it, or where you weren't able to fully live out this work in past lives as you are now?
Definitely. We have a 3-part series into like how I teach intuition, and my third course or program is called Soul Teacher, and it's like a deep dive. I do 3 months with these women, and we do like these groups of 30, and so we teach past lives, all those things, and it's fascinating because these women like come from all other places of the world. They don't know each other. They are doctors and attorneys, and they, accountants, all these things, and they come into the group, and it's like, whoa, like these people have been together for many lifetimes
Mm.
doing this work. And I know that like I have been in like a witch club for many lifetimes with them. And but it's fascinating because it keeps happening. Like we've already taught so many that I'm like, my gosh, like what, what was the magnitude of these like teachings that we've been doing for many lifetimes? Like how many of us were there? So I've definitely seen them a bunch. I've definitely not been able to finish my work before. So
Mm.
most witches were murdered, and or at least like sent off to hide out. So I do know that I'm completing something that I wasn't able to complete. And a lot of the girls I teach, I can see very similar things in them as well. So it's really cool to experience.
Cool. That is, yeah, so interesting. I would love to know too, within those groups, and I know you said initially you had that assistant who you were able to like talk through all these things with. And I just find that whether it's through this line of work or our own personal growth journeys, having community and having someone or a group of people to confidentially share with or just have open conversations is such a gift. I mean, there's so many gifts, but I found that really being able to have these conversations is also just so pivotal to trusting in the work or opening yourself up. Do you find that as you've gone along, having community and being able to share has just almost like opened up another kind of piece of your own awakening?
Yeah. I mean, my community actually for me has always been like the clients who trusted me to come to me. So it's like the way that it was working for me, because at the time there just wasn't, and in Miami, there just wasn't that community. I'm an older millennial, so I feel like it's the young millennials that carry a lot of this remembering, plus the generation right under us. So, like, I was almost a little bit ahead of the time because I was like slightly older than a lot of the people that I ended up teaching. But I had these clients coming to me and they trusted what I was saying. So I feel like almost like they were feeding me in many ways. And I was receiving a lot of validation and also just encouragement to keep going. So because that was part of my journey, we actually built that into like the programs that I do now. Because, what's interesting is that intuition obviously is like a personal experience, and it really is a process of learning to trust yourself. That's really, I teach self-trust through like these like fun things about meeting spirit guides and reading energy, and like these are fun activities and they're cool like tricks to have. It's really just a process of self-trust. But usually we think self-trust is, oh, we shouldn't look for validation, or we shouldn't have anybody on the outside tell us that we're correct. But I don't really believe that, because what we've learned is that when we put people in groups and we're all reading the same thing, or we're all like, kind of having a meditation together, and everybody starts to see the same thing, we are like, oh my gosh, like this is real. And we start, that community actually like strengthens you. And also, things that you've been seeing for a long time and you felt like you were crazy, or people would tell you you were crazy. Like now you have these women who you respect, who are doing well in their careers, who are mothers, who are artists, whatever. You respect them. You think they're like amazing humans. And they are also telling you that they believe in this stuff. That creates like a confidence that you couldn't get on your own, because it's a shared experience, and you're like, your joint confidence becomes bigger. Excuse me, your confidence becomes bigger because of that joint confidence. It's like we are stronger in numbers. And then, we can birth them out into the world after they're done with the program. And it's kind of scary since they all go into their own worlds, and, there's going to be a lot of people that don't believe in it, but they can like lean on being like, no, but these girls are like, I trust, and who are smart and all that stuff, they believe in it too. So it helps you, just validate yourself a little bit more and go deeper. So I didn't have that. It just didn't really exist, or I didn't seek it. But I had my clients always tell, and they believed in it too. So it was like they were feeding me in many ways. And I believe that like my clients, in a sense, like made me in many ways. Like I feel that my intuition has grown because of them, because of like the trust that they had in me, that then led me to have trust in myself.
So cool. And what a beautiful just showcase of like that equal exchange of energy of how they're coming to you, but then equally they're giving back to you in ways that they don't even know. And it's just, yeah, I mean, it's almost like unexplainable. So,
Yeah. Because it is a remembering, like this work, it's like you're remembering things that you've been doing for many lifetimes, or if you're souls from other planets or something, like these are gifts that you've known for a long time. But I feel like in many ways, like the clients sometimes like they recognize me, like they recognize almost like my soul, and like where they're seeing that in me, which then allows me to like see it even more. So in the group programs, the same thing starts to happen. Like some of the girls are like, wow, like you're amazing. Like talking to the other girls in the group, like, look at you, you just did this. And they're recognizing the person's soul. So to be seen at a soul level is also what allows you to like integrate that soul even more and use the gifts, those spiritual gifts of the soul. So that's part of the process.
and how healing on a soul level too. I
Yeah.
mean, it's just, yeah, it's so beautiful. Mm, I love it. So, as we're talking about intuition and things like that, sometimes when we get that intuitive inclination, it's this like spark of energy and it feels like that hell yes or whatever it is. But sometimes what I've experienced, and I know a lot of our community too, is that sometimes that intuitive notion isn't always that like spark of vibrant energy. It can almost feel dull, or sometimes if you're in like certain conversations that the conversation is trying to say something else, but inside you're like, no, I know this inner knowing is somewhere, I know what it is outside of the external and things like that. How do you recommend that someone to kind of help get clear on that intuition and help trust that intuition when sometimes it is that light bulb moment and other times it's almost just that deep knowing that maybe it doesn't feel exciting and expansive, but you still know that it's there. And I know it can kind of get confusing in terms of like, okay, but is this my ego talking, or is this fear, or is this intuition?
Yeah, it's a great question. And it's true. A lot of us think that intuition is like when we have intuitive hits or those intuitive messages come through, we think that they're always going to be like rainbows and butterflies and sprinkles. And we're kind of, under the impression that it's going to feel bright and like loud, which is for sure sometimes, like you said, like that hell yes kind of vibe, like for sure, a lot of the times intuition does come that way. But sometimes intuition is also like a quiet, a slight, like, hey, not a good idea. Like, this is not for you, thing as well. So, it's not all like good news, I would say, also sometimes. There's a few things. One, I always recommend like tracking your intuition. So, it does require a lot of self reflection and being like, okay, last time I felt this and I didn't follow it, like this is what happened. So, because your intuition, like you'll have, I always say, like your intuition tries to develop a language with you ultimately. So sometimes the language is like, oh, it speaks to you through numbers or it speaks to you through songs or for me, you can put like three options in front of me and be like, oh, which one do you think is like the best option for you? And one of those options will like basically like bold and kind of like light up. It feels like almost like thicker to me. The energy of it feels thicker. And that is a language that like my intuition has developed with me. Even yesterday, I was asking a friend, I was like, oh, I have to trademark something. And I gave her like three options. She's like, oh, number one was just so loud to me. And it's like, she's developed the same kind of language. So you do have to track your intuition at some point. Like just make sure that, if you're interested in developing it more, just, be like, oh, the last time I did this, and, kind of just make sure you're understanding like the different languages, because ultimately it'll create a very simple language with you. It'll be like, I feel like this when it's correct, like it comes like this, it sounds like this. And that's going to be very helpful because everybody's intuition is a little different. The other thing that sometimes comes up is the difference between intuition and fear, or fear slash ego, right? Because the ego gets so tricky and it could be, giving us information that sounds good, or it can be like giving us information that's scary. So I also really recommend like looking out for the tone of your intuition. So to me, there is like fear. It's kind of like a fake Louis Vuitton, right? Like it might look the same, but maybe if you like open it and you can feel it, it's just like a slightly different, right? Like you can see if you just put your hand on it, you can touch it, even though it's like like sometimes there's like really good fakes, The same thing, like you have to think about fear as like a really good fake of your intuition. But if you learn to like kind of look for the details of it, you'll be able to spot the fake. So for me, fear has a different vibration. So I see it as like my intuition, whether it's giving me good news or bad news. The other thing is like intuition doesn't scream. And I think we're always looking for it to like speak over things, but it really doesn't. And it tends to have like more of a flow, kind of like, like when we see a heartbeat on a monitor, like think about like a kind of a consistent flow and it's not sharp. It's not like, or when you see that heartbeat and it's like very, very sharp and it's scary, that to me feels more like a fear vibration. So any energy is vibration. And that's one of the things that we teach is like you learn to read energy and really you're just reading vibrations, things that are unseen, but they exist. Fear has a certain vibration, and your own fear or the fear that you like absorb and things like that has a certain vibration. So just kind of see if you can start to feel the difference between, like, don't pay attention to the words that the intuitive hit is giving you. Pay attention to how it feels. And even if it's like, let's say if it's fast and scary, like that many times is that fear, anxiety feeling rather than intuition. Intuition's not going to make you feel like spiky. It's gonna, I don't know if that makes sense, but it will warn you, but it's going to kind of warn you in a solid kind of confident friend type of way. And kind of think of, you've ever been in like, those moments of like you're in a car accident or something, like really, and somehow you find this calm like right before the bad things, and you're like, it's okay, like things are going to be okay. Or like somebody breaks an arm or something, you're like, it's all right. Like you somehow pull yourself together. Intuition speaks like that. Not like, oh my God, like everything's, that's actually more of our fear, our anxiety, all those things. So we do have to like learn the vibrations and like the feelings of each of them to know, because it's not black and white. Like fear, just because your fear shows up, fear doesn't mean like it's telling you all these bad things. Sometimes your ego, your fear is telling you some great things, and you're like, oh, just listening to that, like it's telling me that my rent is going to come and everything's going to be fine. My rent payment's going to show up. And that's not like always the case. So using our intuition is about really kind of maybe hearing the messages or seeing these downloads come, and then taking a minute to like go into your heart and be like, okay, how does that feel? Like, what kind of vibration is that? Forget about the words, forget about like the message, like, how does that feel? And then I go from there.
Cool. That's so helpful. Thank you. Yeah, that feeling is, yeah, that's wonderful. As you were talking, it was getting me thinking of how it's so interesting, the world that we live in right now, where obviously we're connected through technology. Our modern world is just like moving so fast. I mean, as humans, we're in a place where we've never been before. Like we're more advanced than ever, everything like that. But at the same time, we're equally spending so much time reverting back to these like ancient wisdoms, as I'll call them, these different principles. We're talking about, tapping into the body, connecting to our body, understanding our souls. We're doing so much soul level healing and everything right now. It's so interesting because you could almost feel that we're kind of like swinging back and forth on two opposite sides of the spectrum, maybe. But do you feel that, or I guess maybe just in like, what ways do you feel that spirituality and these tools are kind of blending together with this technologically advanced world of ours?
Yeah.
If that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, it does.
Okay.
I think I'll just answer, I guess, what is coming to my heart. So we're definitely like, we're in a place of a lot of spiritual growth opportunity. It feels like, we're just like in this place where, I mean, and we even see it in my business and our businesses, like that there's just anything that we were hiding before, anything that we were, not paying attention to is like just showing itself so loudly the last few years or so. And it's just getting very, intense. So we're definitely like in this opportunity to be able to look at these things, heal these things. There's like so much karma happening now, things like that. So it's just a good opportunity to kind of jump in. Unfortunately, like the technology has obviously like helped us through a lot of these things, and it's made there's so many great things about technology. It's made a lot of this information like wild, which is probably part of why we've woken up so much more, because the information is so available to us. So it's definitely done its part, but it's also just whatever you're carrying within yourself, and it's just faster for that to be shared with other people. So like if you're carrying trauma or fear or, whatever, like anybody, even people that are, have, huge followings or a lot of influence or whatever, like they can share that. So, it's kind of, it's a little scary, because if you've done your work or you're very like heart-based, you can, share from that place, or you can share it from a place of like, your own fears or whatever. Also, I think that it's becoming, at least for me, increasingly like hard, even though I teach a lot of energetic protection, increasingly difficult with the amount of like sensory that's coming forward too, because it just seems like there's just all that technology is sending so much towards us. And because we've had to rely on it the last, almost 2 years at this point because of COVID, it's definitely almost like contaminating us so much more than it used to. And that is hard with intuition because intuition, requires like a certain amount of grounding, a certain amount of, being able to come into ourselves, and this, and the technology can really like contaminate what's happening. So the best thing is like to definitely think about energetic protection. I like right now am just enforcing or just reminding people of your own cleansing practices. Like, what do you do when you're feeling like you've absorbed so much from these different technologies? What are your practices to get yourself back on track? For me, it's dancing or heavy workout, like having to do like a very strenuous like workout so I can move out that fear energy that I absorb that's not my own. Again, good music, some dancing, just a quick alone time, things like that. So I just feel like we're in a, it's funny that we're talking about like COVID and all this stuff, but I think like the most contamination is the things that are being thrown at us energetically right now. So it's like, and a mask is not gonna, is not gonna cure you from that. It's really
Totally.
like your own like energetic practices. And we're definitely like at a war of that, I would say, of like that light and that darkness. And those of us who have been like working really hard to like stay in the light and all that stuff, like we just have to remember that we can do our best to prevent energetic contamination. And also, what are your practices for afterwards? Like once you've been contaminated, like how do you cleanse yourself? And those are things that we really have to watch. Also, like the other thing is why I love to teach intuition is, and I teach my kids this all the time. Like people think I'm crazy, but I always tell my kids, I'm like, you know, there's going to be days that I'm going to say something and I'm going to tell you guys that you need to do this or whatever. And in your little heart and your little stomach, it's not going to feel right. And it's probably because mommy's having a bad day. Like she's not in a good place. And what she's saying is not true. Right. Because even though I am authority, I'm mom, I'm generally good to them. There are going to be days that like their authority figure is in the wrong energy. And that's the truth with our online teachers and people that we're looking on online who maybe are sharing messages or whatever. As much as like we love them, we also have to have our own intuition to know at the moment that what they're saying may be coming from like a little part of like a wounded human part of themselves. And that is um there's no reason for us to like get scared or to be like, oh my gosh, like she's saying the world is ending, so the world must be ending. And it's like, yeah, but have you read her energy? Did you go into her, her root chakra? If you look at her root chakra, she comes from a lot of trauma and unsettledness and chaos. So what's happening in the world is causing a lot of triggering to her, and she's sharing this message. And you can absorb her fear, or you can be like, oh, I pray for her. Like she's always on it and she's great, but she's going through something. And like, I don't have to receive that, even though I love her, as a teacher and all those things. So we have to like look out for contamination, energetic contamination right now. And
Mm,
we have to protect ourselves.
yeah. That was beautiful. So heartfelt. Well said. And back to, I've been doing just a lot of reflection on that myself of, getting caught up of the authority figure, putting certain people on a pedestal, and then, you know, they become human or some of their own traumas, or, like you said, energetic contamination comes out, and it can also feel very hurtful then too, because it's like, what, like, where did that come from? You feel like you almost get hit out of left field, and then you don't know what to do with it yourself.
It's just kind of like if your mom was like always on it and one day she has some sort of like breakdown, you're like, whoa, 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 like what just happened? Like you were my stability, like what just happened? Which is why like there's just not a better, there's like it is the best time for our own self-trust and our own intuition and developing that, and if you learn to read people's energy, you can be like, oh, this poor girl, she's off her rocker today, so
For sure. Oh, that was so beautiful. Well, where can people find you to connect with you, learn from you, even work with you?
Oh, thank you. So I'm pretty active on Instagram, so you can just follow me there, Nikki Novo, Nikkinovo. We have all sorts of links there. We have, if you're interested in developing your intuition, we have a 3-step series. It's called, we do Soul Seeker, then we do Soul Expansion, and then Soul Teacher. You can come at any level because some of you will, have backgrounds in Reiki or other things that you might not need like the level one. But if you want to develop your intuition with us. I teach, but also we have soul mentors who have trained under me who also teach as well. And we learn like to read energy and spirit guides and Akashic records and energetic healings, all these different things. So that's really fun. I also do readings. I open my calendar at the end of every month. And if you can't book with me, we have soul mentors who have trained under me who do follow my method and they're amazing. They're who I go to. And you can also book with them. And that's all on nikkinovo.com or even just on my Instagram. You'll find all that.
Wonderful. It's interesting. You mentioned earlier through your journey how a spirit guide came into you and, mentioned about precision and using your intuition in a precise way and talking about reading energy through people. I also feel that we can really read energy through websites and through programs and things like that. And your work, you can just feel the cleanness of it and the authenticity, and just it truly is your own precise method. And I say that from not having taken any of your programs, but simply just looking around and following you, you can really just feel just the purity in it. So
Oh,
it's
thank you.
wonderful.
I super appreciate that. Yeah, you can put energy into businesses and clean the energy of your business or your podcast. We do. I do a lot of that. Yeah.
Cool. Well, before we close out, I love to end with some loving your own soul questions, as I call them, just so everyone can get to know you a little bit deeper than they do already. And I'm curious to know this. What is your sun, moon, and rising sign?
So I'm just learning about astrology, to be honest with you. I
Cool.
don't know too much, but I know that I am a um, Cancer sun. I am a Leo moon and a Cancer rising. I have all water in my chart and like just a little bit of earth. So I'm very Cancer energy.
I love that. I'm a Cancer rising myself. Yeah,
Okay.
I've got a lot of fire and water in there. So, are you familiar with your human design type?
I don't know my human design type. I was on the balance blonde with Jordan.
Mm,
She asked me the same thing. We looked it up, but I don't know what I am.
that's
What
okay.
I need to get into that. Do you follow it?
I do. I'm a generator. I don't know if this would spark anything. Jordan, the balance bond, she's a reflector. And then
Reflector.
there's projector, manifesting generator, and a manifester.
And I should know this because I have read Jenna Zoe many times, and she's all about, that's what she teaches. I'm trying to see if I can pull it up. I know somebody's given it to me before. My human design, it's somewhere.
Totally fine. Do you have a favorite animal or even a specific spirit animal who you've been working with lately?
Yeah, I jump around. I love spirit animals. I'm into the wolf right now because
Cool.
I just moved from Miami to North Carolina, and I did that strategically. I grew up in Miami. All my friends are there. Very strong, like Cuban community, and I'm going through a process of rewilding myself, basically, and going. As much as I am me, I'm kind of going back to, which is why I'm studying astrology, and I'm just really going a little deeper into what are the innate part of me versus like the things that I have become, like the personality parts of me that have become because of whatever human conditioning I've had this lifetime. So I'm going like deeper into my essence, and the wolf I feel is helping me go back into my natural state. So that is like my current intention and my current spirit guide. But I've had all sorts, I mean, spirit animals. I had a teacher once give me a turtle, which I was very upset about because I like to move forward. And I'm like, why are you giving me a turtle? And she's like, you need to slow down. You need to go deeper and slow. And I was like really annoyed. But that turtle served me too. So I kind of just I bring in spirit animals into my life depending on like what stage, or sometimes they show up in my life. But currently we are working with a wolf.
Cool. I love that. A flamingo has actually come into
Oh,
my life recently,
what's
which
that for, you think?
I feel very much about coming into my own uniqueness and honoring standing out, standing tall,
Ah,
being vibrant.
love
Really
that.
just, yeah. So it's so fun. I love
That is
animals.
that's so good.
Are you a morning routine or a nighttime routine?
I'm a definite morning routine person. Depending on like if my kids are in school or if they're on vacation or whatever, like it kind of varies and I kind of change depending on the seasons. But like I don't function after 5 o'clock, like in the afternoon. I mean, I can do some things, I can teach and things like that, but I start like taking a very deep dip. So I wake up with I like wake up with energy.
Yeah, I feel that myself. Is there
Oh,
a particular?
I found my human design.
Oh, what is it?
It says I'm a generator.
Okay, cool. Fun.
So
So you have that. That's interesting. That actually makes sense with what you just said about come 5 o'clock, you kind of fade out with a generator. We have that like natural source of energy when it's something that we're lit up by, and we really move through our energy entirely until it's like done for the day and then it
you're a
dips.
generator also.
Yep.
Okay. But I know there's like manifesting generator and there's like different types, but we're just generators.
Yes. Yep.
Okay. I'm
Yeah.
gonna look this
Human design is so interesting. It's one that I would love to dive deeper into, but it's so much to it. So,
up.
yeah, so fun. Is there a particular season or a time of year that you feel most connected to?
Well, I mean, this is my first experience with seasons. I don't know if you feel like that in Florida,
Oh,
right?
true.
But like
Yeah.
sometimes we don't really exist in seasons. It's like bright and sunny, all the time. So that was actually one of I'm scared for winter, but I also like intentionally was like, because I'm such a go and bright and, energetic person, I kind of have a feeling that that's probably from my conditioning from growing up and all that. And there might be more flow, like there might be like more ebbs and flows to me. So I specifically put myself in a place that had seasons, mild seasons, but seasons nonetheless. As a kid, I used to love the summer because it was vacation, it was my birthday. But as of late, I've been really loving fall. But
Mm,
we'll see if what changes like while I'm living here.
yeah. And you're going to get such a good fall
Yeah,
starting here in about a month or
that's what I
so.
hear.
Yeah, that's exciting. If you had no fear, what is one thing you would do?
The first thing that pops into my head is so when we started moving here, my husband started like taking over my Instagram and making videos of himself, like starting to homestead because we bought 24 acres and we're setting up the property, building a house, and all this stuff. And he started like taking over my Instagram and making these like really funny videos because there's no I think that when we're online and we're doing this kind of online world, we're just like, oh, overthinking the video and the content, all this stuff. But he's
Totally.
not in that world, so he's not overthinking. And he just gets on there. He's like a total natural. And I'm like, man, people have told us because he videos the two of us, and people have been telling us like, oh, you guys should do something together. You should have some sort of show. And I was like, oh gosh, but that is outside of my comfort zone because at least this work I can stay like in my expertise, in a way. And then, but if I go into this place that has no walls, almost, it feels like it's just about like your personality or who you are as a couple. But I think it would be really fun to have like a little show about the process of us like moving from the city and coming here and just our family and our relationship. And I know how to do it, obviously, like I know what needs to be done, but I guess there's like fear of again not having those walls that keep me in this like safe container. So I
Totally.
haven't thought about that. That's a good question.
Thank you. Yeah, talk about like ultimate vulnerability by
Yeah,
doing that. And then even just, talking about the seasons, like that will be so interesting to
yeah,
witness how that goes. And yeah,
exactly. So, but I guess maybe it's something I should look into because you shouldn't do things just because you should not do things because of fear.
true, true. Yeah, full support to go for that, definitely. Well, final question that everyone gets. When did your exploration to diving deeper into your own soul first begin? And how has it evolved since then?
I was probably, I was either 21 or 22. I was engaged to my high school sweetheart. We had dated for like 8 years and we were engaged to get married at a really young age because I grew up feeling that like you either leave the house in a white dress or in a casket. It's like the kind of saying that, like, I was going to be with my parents. I wasn't even really like allowed to go away for college. So I stayed home for college. And this guy that I was dating, who I loved, was a really good person. He was a professional baseball player. So I was like, this is my out. Like, I can marry this guy and we'll have enough money to like get out of here. He has to get out of here because he plays for another team. And, but I, of course, like, did not want that. I was not ready for that. And oh, 2 months before our wedding that was scheduled, I was in New York visiting a girlfriend who lived there. And I went with like another friend and we just had a great time that weekend. And I remember standing in Rockefeller Center, like watching like the ice skating because it was cold. And I remember just being like staring there and just having a moment of presence, which is how your intuition comes in. And I heard very strongly, like, Nikki, you are meant for something more. You are meant for much bigger things. And I was like, holy shit, what was that? I'm like losing it. And especially it was so loud in New York. It was just crazy to like finally hear myself. And I, came home that weekend. I called off the wedding. I was like, I have to listen to this. Like, I believe this thing that just happened. I had never heard anything like that before. I was definitely totally disassociated with my body because I was really just pretending that like this was the thing that I wanted to do, was get married. So, that was like a really big deal. That's what moved me to California. In California, wellness and spirituality is just so much easier to come across. So I was definitely, this was even before meeting the psychic, like I was introduced to certain like wellness things. And I hadn't tried the intuitive thing yet, but just kind of like learning about myself. And really the first step for me was this, which is funny, it's kind of full circle where I am now, but it was like, who am I really? Like beyond that was really like, these decisions I were making were not my own. And the beginning of my journey started with, who am I really, like beyond? And it's funny because as I was just telling you, I'm in like the second wind of that, like, okay, now who am I really?
Right.
But more from I think before it was like, what do I want for myself? Maybe still from a human place. And now I'm more of like, who is my soul really? Like a deeper exploration of my essence, which is a little different than like where I started.
Yeah, 100%. It's interesting too how sometimes these spiritual journeys can start with like the green juice or getting in touch with our bodies. And then it almost just like opens up this pathway that we never thought that we'd go down sometimes.
Yeah, I always think that there's like three ways in. I feel like there's like the mind way in, the body, or the spirit. Like I feel like they all kind of, sometimes people come because they have like a health problem and their body brings them here. Or some people come because they have like a very hard mental health, depression, like their mind is really taking over. And some because they had some sort of spiritual experience. But I feel like they all at some point, like you zigzag between those three because that's what we are. We are mind, body, and soul.
So interesting. Yeah. And then there's that intersection.
Mhm.
So cool. Well, Nikki, thank you so much for just holding space with us, sharing here today. This was truly such a gift. Yeah, loved it. So thank you.
No, thank you so much. You have beautiful questions and like your heart is so into this work, and I'm just grateful for the opportunity and that you're here in the world. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. Wow. What an incredible episode. Isn't Nikki just so wonderful? I know I say this a lot, but truly the connections that have been happening lately have been so soulful, and I almost want to call them otherworldly, but they're not, because what is meant for us is meant for us. And yeah, I'm just so grateful. And last but not least, to that point, if you feel inspired and enjoyed today's conversation, I would be so honored to have you rate and review the show. Your ratings and reviews mean so much to me and to our wonderful guests, and equally, they also just help me grow the show and continue bringing on more incredible souls such as Nikki herself. Definitely, please do drop in on Instagram. Let me know what you're enjoying about the show. If you have any topic recommendations or guests, or even just want to say hi, you can find me at the Britt Olson. And I just so love connecting with all of you as well. So definitely don't be shy. Please drop in and say hi. This community is just so special. It warms my heart so much. And I also, if you're inclined, I would also like to invite you to join our private modern wellness community Facebook group as well. You can find that link on the show notes, or again, just reach out to me and I will send it to you. Thank you again for tuning in, being a part of this community. Thank you, Nikki, for holding space with us, and I look forward to continuing the journey with you again soon.